Testing, check, check. 1, 2, 3. Hello, it's been a while since I streamed on Thursdays. How's everyone doing? Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. For those that don't know who I am, I'm Alita Singleton. I am a UX designer who's been designing for over 24 years now, experiences across desktop apps, multimedia CDs back in the day when those were a thing, and kiosks, mobile apps, and web, and most recently XR, with a focus on VR, since I don't have a lot of access to any kind of mixed or augmented reality headsets right now, so the focus is on VR for now until I can get that access. But what I do I create educational content, and I also create curriculum for Circuit Stream, and I have my own online school as well. I know the pain of trying to transition into XR design from a UX designer's perspective, because there wasn't a lot, when I was trying to get into it, there wasn't a lot of stuff out there. So I was digging around on the internet trying to find stuff, and I realized I would like to help other people not have to do that. I would like other people to help other people find the information they need to transition, empower people to get into this XR UX space so that we can help define the future of this technology together. So on Thursdays, I do this stream where I play video games and VR experiences and talk through them from a UX designer's perspective. And at the end, I'll go by genre. So at the end of each session, each stream, for example, I will play a game like Car Mechanics Simulator, and then I will do a Rose, Thorn, Bud on that experience, and talking about what works, what doesn't work, what would we do about it if this were our project and this was the next steps, what would we do to make it better. And I do that for each game, and I go by genre. So right now I'm working on training sims, because big picture, training is very, very effective in XR. I've seen it. This is the background I come from with VR, and creating training simulations for safety with consequences, so that people can learn and really have high impact learning of safety without having to go through that in real life. It's proven to save lives. It has saved lives. And so training is a big thing for VR and XR. And so right now I'm going through training sims. And since it's difficult to find official training sims on, out in the wild, available to the public, I've been doing games, and we can learn a lot from games as well, because game design has a very direct influence on VR design and XR design. So we learn from game design in order to create more effective XR design. And thanks again to everyone who's followed recently, everyone following actually at all. If you want to get a list of all the links to all the things, here is my link tree. So that these are all the resources that I have out there right now. Got a YouTube channel with videos. This on the left that you see here is one of those videos that I just released this last month, I believe. Yeah, it went to public last month, but it was in early release in October. If you become a patron, you can get early access to videos. But all of the links to all of the things are on there. You can also get merch. I have hats and stuff. I love beanies, so you've got options for beanies and all that. But that'll help me keep creating this content if you would like to help support this effort, because this is something that I do. I established the LLC to create educational content and empower people like you who want to get into this space to learn from this. And okay, so playing video games, I've played Rover Mechanic Simulator for training. In the games that I'm playing, Rover Mechanic Simulator has a free demo that you can give a try on Steam. And it's called Training Day. So it's teaching you about working in the workshop, in the hangar, for repairing Rover drones, are they drones, on Mars. And Car Mechanic Simulator, similar. You've got a new job at a car shop, and you're learning the ropes for like changing oil and stuff. And so they're not official training, but they're still teaching you stuff. So this is why I chose these games, because again, it's hard to get official training out in the wild. That's like not behind non-disclosure agreements and so forth. And then Wrench game is teaching you like working on cars and building engines and stuff. So they got a desktop version and a VR version. And we went through all of those, went through the rose thorn buds, and we're thinking through the pillars of gaming UX as we go through these. And I highly recommend this book by Celia Hodent. You can check it out in the About section on the Twitch stream. If you just scroll down on the Twitch page, you should be able to see it in the About section. I've got links to that, as well as some other resources that you can check out. The Gamer's Brain, which I highly recommend. And we go through the pillars of gaming UX. And if you come from a UX background, you'll recognize the usability pillars. These are from Nielsen Norman heuristics. However, there are only 7 here, and we have added 3 that are specific to gaming that she has written down. And she has a lot of experience in game design and so forth. So she is a good mind to listen to. So usability would still be signs and feedback, clarity. Form needs to follow function, so the look needs to not be. It doesn't matter how beautiful your game is if people don't know how to use it, if it doesn't work well. So form should follow function. It should be consistency, not so much for consistency's sake, but consistency enforces confidence that the user's going to. The user, the player, the viewer, depending on what experience you're doing, gives them confidence that they are going to. Oh, that link broken? Or is it working? Okay. Sorry, I'm checking my chat. It gives them confidence that when they interact with something, it's going to work the way they expect, if it's consistent. If it's not consistent, then there's going to be all kinds of. They're going to be hesitant to do things, which is going to hurt the experience. It's going to make them not enjoy the experience as much. People need to feel like they have some kind of competency, and that gets into engageability. There should be a minimum workload. It shouldn't be overly cumbersome to do something unless it's a part of the game mechanic. And you can learn, and I go through a lot of I go through that in detail in that YouTube video that I posted in the chat if you want to check it out, Pillars of Gaming UX, where I talk through these. But these, again, are from Nielsen Norman heuristics, and then these, but they've removed 3 that aren't relevant to gaming, and they've added 3 that are specific to gaming, which are around engageability of what's the emotion, the presence, the motivation for continuing this game, the flow, the difficulty curve, and so forth. And so then based on that, we'll play through the game. I'll talk through it from a UX designer's perspective, from that thought process of those best practices, and then we'll say what's working, what's not working, what should we do about it if this were our project, or if we were going to learn from it. And then I'll talk about if it's not a VR experience, how would we translate that into VR? What would we need to think about? And then if it's a VR experience, what we need to think about if it's AR or mixed reality. And then on Tuesdays, I also do a chillin' workin' stream where I'm actually working on a pattern library that you can find on my website. If you go to patterns, you'll see that. And that is just where I'm creating a pattern library of things, how other people have solved problems. I can bring it up here as well. This is a video that I recently did. Let's see, this is the school. Let me just pull that up. So pattern library. And this will change over time, but I'm grabbing patterns of how other people have solved problems. Like, how do you add animation to a VR experience without making people sick? It is possible to do this. And how have other people solved this problem? How could I do this? And controller interactions. How do we handle controller interactions in a way that's going to be easy for people to use? And what are the micro interactions that go with that controller interaction? For example, with the teleportation. The problem to solve is that real walking is the best, but teleportation is one of the least, causes the least amount of motion sickness of all of them, but it can break immersion. How can we handle that? How can we reduce that break of immersion for people, still make it easy to use? Here are the micro interactions to do that. This is actually real work that I've provided to people before on projects. These are the details that you would put into a gaming storyboard for a certain step in a game, like triggers, sound effects. And I can't find this information anywhere in any like schools that I've looked at. And of course, I haven't looked at universities in depth, but you would have to go to a university potentially to learn this. And I'm not sure that they even teach it there, honestly. How you would create a true gaming storyboard. But these are the details that you would put into a true gaming storyboard that I've already done for you in the patterns. And so this is what I'm working on. So on Tuesdays, I'm going back and into these training sims, and I am gathering patterns from it. So I'm looking at the roses, all the things that they're doing well, and then I'm going in and making notes about what do I want to talk about in the pattern, what's working, what's not working, how would I make a difference, how would I do it differently if it were my project, so that we can study that, learn from it. And then, so for example, I like the I want to give an example of how to show someone how to access a reference manual in a training sim. If Wrench was a good example of that, I would say, okay, go check out Wrench. This is what I like about it. This is what isn't working. This is not good UX at this point. Here's how we would do it differently. And go check it out if you want to give it a try. And that is real work that is part of the design process for VR. We have constantly referencing other games, even Vader Immortal, Fire Emblem Three Houses, The Walking Dead, for real projects. And playing these games and understanding how they work, the patterns in them, helps the design team, helps the development team, even, because the developers do it too. reference these things for patterns to see, okay, this is a pattern people expect from these games, makes it better experience for people. We're going to follow this pattern and, of course, adapt it to our situation. And since I saw that on real projects actually happening, I want to recreate that to help people. And here's this library of stuff that's already done for you. You just have to share it with your team. Most of it's free. I have like tiers, so a lot of the information's free, but if it goes into a lot more detail on, like if it's a like cross-platform experience and there's a lot of different controller interactions and micro interactions going on in that takes me more effort to write out that pattern, which is again real work that you would turn over on your team anyway. You're just not having to do it. I have it for you. Those are going to be a tier. Like if you're a certain patron level, then you'll get full access to the entire library, but a lot of it is free as well. So there's still a lot of free stuff there. That is still a high value because it's work that's already done for you that you would use in your actual job in XR design. So that's what I'm doing on Tuesdays, is gathering those patterns, because I'm working on a training course on my online school. That's in the link tree as well, but here's a link to it. I've got 2 free courses on there right now, transitioning to XR UX design if you're interested in XR design. And not sure if you want to get into it. That's a free course for you. It's very short. You can just talks about this is what it's like. These are the types of things you can do. This is where it's probably heading. And then this is a curated course of all of my foundational UX best practices that I've written so far. But yeah, so that's what I do. And then at the end of each of these genres, I will go and I will do a synthesis on this. And I'm doing this live as people are watching so that you learn how I work and how I do this analysis. And today's a little bit different because I have a short stream today, so I have a meeting that I need to get to. But I'm just reviewing what I've done so far to refresh my own brain, because we had a Christmas break and then I was having technical difficulties, so I'm needing to review for myself what I've done so far, because I've finished all of the synthesis of this and now I need to decide what to do next with it. Because all of this genre synthesis, what I did was I went through and I grabbed all of the roses from each of these games and I put it into one board. Overarching things that work. What are the individual standouts that an individual game has done well that we want to learn from? And what are the overarching issues that all of these experiences, or most of the experiences, are having that is a trend that we don't want to follow? We want to not do that. We want to do better than that. How can we get out of that trend? What are these overarching issues? And then what are the individual standout game issues that we also want to learn from and not recreate ourselves? It's good to have that critical eye on not just blindly copying what other people have done, but critically thinking about what's working, not's working, based on UX best practices and research of how would we do this better, and then overarching recommendations of all of these games of what is working. So let's look at, and then I'll have follow-up and go back into individual games to see does it do this, does it not, because that helps me pull out the pattern of, is this an overarching thing that works? And now that I've done all of this follow-up, I need to decide what I'm gonna do with this. I am creating a course again on here, but I may write a report. So an example of a report, let me find one. What was that? What was the one I did? Let's see. My brain just went blank. I did one on tabletop gaming. That's right. I did one on tabletop gaming. Yeah. Is it working? Okay, yeah. I don't know why the search isn't showing up on the responsive version. Maybe it's at the bottom. Tabletop RPGs. This is I don't code, so I can't create a better experience than that. This is a WordPress template. So I did a video. So at the end of, I did the same thing here that I'm doing for training that I did for tabletop RPGs. I did all the synthesis and everything live, and now I need to decide next step. Am I going to create a report on this, or am I just going to use this information to do a course, or am I going to do both? I know I'm going to use the information in the course that I'm working on, and I know I'm going to be creating patterns from it. I kind of still want to do a report because I think it would be very valuable. This is an example of a report that I've done before. I'll type it in here. How to create a great tabletop RPG in XR. That's a report, and it should link to the video. But each report, this would be an example of a actual formal report that you would turn over for research. Only instead of it being on a slide deck like you would normally do in a corporate situation, I've made it into an article. But this is how I would write an official research report on something. If I were doing competitive landscaping, then this would be an output of that, an official professional output. So it's valuable for you to look at this if you're new to UX, if you haven't been in it before. What does a report look like? Because this is going to help you in your own work. But so I start out by explaining. Back in January of this year, which was last year, I started a live Twitch stream where I play video games and VR experience and talk through. So I'm giving a little background about myself and what I'm doing. Hey Phantom, how are you doing? Knowing what's expected from a report is important. Yeah, so I've got two versions of this. I've got the report version and I've got the video version wait, no, that's the Pillars of Gaming UX. We'll talk through this real quick, but there's also a video that might be at the bottom. Yeah, here's the video. So if I were to do a meeting and do a report out meeting for the team or stakeholders or something, this would be an example of how I would do that report out. And this is a video of me actually doing that. I did it for circuit streams, so you're gonna have to filter through their marketing stuff, unless you just want to learn about circuit stream. But the report's in there, and I talk through it how I would report it out. So that's also a useful example of how, if you were a professional, you're wanting to get in this field, how do people report out this stuff? That's how I would do it for competitive landscaping. So those are examples. So now I'm thinking about doing the same thing for training, but maybe instead of doing a report video for training, it's just going to be that course that I'm working on. I have to decide what I want. I may end up doing both because it would also be useful to have this, this is how I'd report this out. So I may still end up doing both. That's probably a good idea, to just do everything, all of the things. I'll probably do that. So write the report. I give background about what I'm doing, where I'm coming from with this, and then, I'm explaining I'm trying to give you practical experience for your job, because it's very hard to get into the field if you don't have practical experience. There are some somewhat unfair, unrealistic expectations that employers have, and they're understandable when you talk to them, because I've had chats with them and talk to them about, why do you expect an entry-level person to have experience? They're entry level. you got to give them a chance. How do you expect them to have experience? And they explain, well, we're investing in this person. It's at risk, blah, blah, blah. So they want to have some kind of confidence that this person will be able to deliver. So that's why they claim they want some kind of experience. So this is my effort to give you actual experience, so that you can, you know what types of outputs are expected. You know, as you watch me do these things on stream, okay, this is how you do it, because this is how you learn on the job anyway. So that's my effort. If you can think of other ideas, better ways of doing it, I would listen. I would listen to that. If you have other thoughts on how I can do that, I am not at the point where I can hire people to give them actual paid experience. I would like to get there at some point, but I'm not there right now. I can't hire anyone. I can't hire apprentices or anything. But I can at least do this much with the stream. So I've been grouping the games I play by genre. This is tabletop RPGs, so this is explaining what this project is. What am I doing? And if this were a real project, because it's not, so I'd be explaining, if it were a real project, I would take these learnings to determine what to keep in mind if I were creating a tabletop RPG for myself. And so whenever you create a report, you're going to talk about, okay, this is the research I've done, and these are the findings from that research. So these are the games that I studied. So you talk about the premise of your research, and then, which mine is just about, this is just something I'm doing on the side to help people get experience and to teach them how to do this stuff practically. It's not an official thing for a project that I'm getting paid to do. It's just me in my erudition and my wanting to help other people learn how to do this themselves. So I'm explaining that here, and then, okay, now these are my findings from that. So you explain your premise, and then you do an intro of what did you actually study? What did I study? I studied these games for tabletop RPGs. And you can watch all those videos of me doing that on the YouTube channel. So if it were an actual project, you would say, okay, here's reference to all of the videos of my research that I've done. If you like, we're doing field research, for example, you would want to record that field research. And field research is when you go out and you watch people doing the thing, because that's like super valuable to watch people in their actual environment doing the thing that you're trying to create a solution for. The best way to do research is to watch them do it and talk to them, ask them to talk out loud. And so you would share those video footage with your team. If they want to dig into them, they can. You're going to pull out highlights from that in your report. But if they want to watch all of the footage, they can go here to watch it. Or, yeah. And that's going to require some video releases of your research participants to say, yes, I give you permission to share this footage with your team, blah, blah, blah. And now these are the findings from that thing. An executive kind of summary of, these are the overarching things that are working here. The sound effects, the music, the lighting are effectively creating the mood, and I go into why that's important and where you can learn more about that, making that effective. And I go through that for each one. So the onboarding tutorials enable you to learn by doing, and then I go into why that's important, and I show you where you can learn more about that. So that I do that for each main point, and teach and tell you why it's important, and link to where you can learn more about it throughout the entire report. And some people would say you would probably want to create an executive summary at the beginning or the end for the people that are too busy to read the whole thing. That is something that I didn't do here. I should go back and do that for the TLDR, too long didn't read. I haven't done that, but that is something that you would want to include in a report. So usually when I do reports, I do 2 versions of the report. This would be the long version of the report. I didn't do the short version. I could probably do a short version especially for training. I don't know if I'll do it for that because it's already done. And it was just a project. It's not an actual project, but this training thing, I'm actually using this research to inform a course anyway. So maybe I'll do the 2 versions of the report. We'll see. That's a lot of stuff. So we'll see. Because this is all on my time, not paid. So we'll see. But I usually would do 2 reports. I would do a short report and a long report. The short report would be like maybe 4 slides, 5 slides. And that's the one that you would give to the super high ups that are way too busy to read the whole report. They just want the quick and dirty details of, okay, what was the results of this? What are we supposed to be doing next? Okay, so I would have like 3 or 4 slides. One would be an executive summary. It's basically your executive summary that you're doing, and then referring to the longer report. So it would include, these are the people that conducted the research and their experience. These are this is how we conducted the research. The methods that we used and what we actually researched. And then these are the overarching findings from that research, and just have like a bullet list of top findings. And these are the demographics of the people that we studied if we're studying people. Or if we are doing games, you would just list the games like I did here. If it's people that you're studying, you would include demographics like age range, experience range, job types, things like that would be the types of demographics you would include in your report. And then your overarching findings, like this is what worked, this is what didn't work, and then this is what we want to do about it. A short summary of, okay, these are our proposed next steps of what we would do about it. If you want to learn more and dig into all the details of that, here's the link to the long report. So that's usually how I do it. Short summary report, and then a detailed longer report that they can dig into, and dig into all of the actual research videos if they want to watch those as well, if they really want to dig in. So this would be an example of the long report. And so the overarching things that work. And again, you can see that video version of that if you want to see the video version instead of reading it. Because that actually has video clips, I believe, instead of just still images. I have actual video clips from it, I think. It's been a while since I did it. It's been almost a year, maybe. No, I did it in June, so half a year. Still a long time. And then, so the thing that's working, why it's important, where to learn more about it. What's working, why it's important, where to learn more about it. And then, so I like to make them both educational and informative. So these are the individual game standouts. These are the things that we want to learn from other games. In my example for competitive landscaping, these are the things that stood out. And again, this is from what were the things that an individual game did that we want to learn from. So the overarching things that work, if you want to see how I'm translating the mirror board into the report, is... So we have the list of games, and again, this is a different report. I would have to find that other one. But these are the games that I played. They're not going to be the same here because it's a different report again. And then the overarching things that work are this column, this first column. The overarching things that work. And so then I add detail. Why is it important? Where can you learn more about it? And then individual game standouts. That's this column. These are the individual game standouts. I explain Card Hunter. It is a free-to-play business model, and it's not throwing that in your face. It's very clear. There's no guessing, no gotcha. There's no annoying disruptive pop-ups every few seconds, which has made me uninstall a game before because of pop-ups asking me to pay for something in a free game. I have uninstalled games for that in the past. Don't do that. So this is explaining my experience with that. I only came across it because I was trying to figure out, because I saw pizza. Ooh, pizza. What is that? And that's the only reason that wow, I made 80 followers. Thank you. Thank you for following. Fi.exe, is that how you say that? Thanks for following. Is because I was intrigued by this melty cheese pizza icon. So that made me look at it. What is this? And then that's how I found the real money option. So it wasn't in my face. There was 0 pop-ups for it. It was just me seeing that cheesy pizza icon and saying that looks interesting, makes me want pizza. I want to learn more about this thing. And that's how I learned about their money model, which is excellent because it intrigued me, and then it made me click on it because I wanted to know what this pizza is about. So you can do your real money options without being super annoying about it. And then, so I go through all of these individual standouts, explain why is this a standout. So for example, card decks with minimized stats. This is something that it's a problem with physical cards in real tabletop gaming, is that whenever you stack the cards, you can't see the stats anymore, depending on the design, of course. So because the stats are going to be over here on the side or something, and you have to read the description and all that, and you have to flip through them and decide which one you want to play. Whereas with Shadowverse, whenever it's in a folded deck like this, all the stats move to the side. So they're adjusting the layout of the card, depending on whether or not it's in a deck, like laying out flat or in a fanned out hand, your hand. So that was a nice standout feature that I liked about their card design, and so forth. So these are all the things that stood out to me that, so this is what the card looks like in Shadowverse when it's just laying flat. Your stats are around the edges, whereas when it's in a deck, they've moved to the side so you can still see them. That was a standout feature that you can do with digital cards that you can't do with physical cards, which is nice. And then, so that was that column. And then, let's see, overarching issues. These are the overarching issues. And then I just talk through, give a picture, give an example from the thing, explain, this is an important thing. Why is it important, and where you can learn more about it. And explain what the issue is. So the lack of ability to manually progress the dialogue during tutorials and cutscenes makes you miss important information while trying to process what's previously said. This results in information overload and a lack of confidence in understanding what's being learned. And that's especially an issue when you're learning mechanics and rules of a game genre you've never played before. So I explain what's the problem with this. Why do you not want to, you want to allow them to manually progress dialogue when they're learning. And that's something that I'm going to talk about in training as well, because you want them to manually progress that so that they can have time to process mentally what they're learning. And here's where you can learn more about best practices for training. So again, here's the issue, here's why it's a problem, here's where you can learn how to do it the right way. And teaching them, okay, this is controllers. This is the issue with not having a tooltip that matches your controller. Why you would want that, and why regional mental models aren't being considered because different countries have different mental models for how they use the buttons on controllers. Especially, this is a PlayStation thing. PlayStation did recently announce that they're going to change that, which is making a lot of people in Asia very upset. I play a lot of Japanese games and switch back and forth between Japanese games and American games, and the X and the 0 are switched in use for each. So in America, X is select. In Asia, or especially Japan, I don't know about China, the O is select. So they're opposite. And whenever I'm switching back and forth between a game or a platform, I get them mixed up all the time and accidentally do the wrong thing. So explaining that and explaining the why. And so then individual game standouts, individual game issues. They go through, what are these individual game issues? Okay, now that we've gone through all of this and we've learned what all of these issues are, we would get into recommendations. So, overarching recommendations. Based on these findings, this is what we can take away as general recommendations for this genre. Know your target audience, and so forth. So that's where we tie these buds in with this translating synthesis. So know your target audience. So then I talk through and educate. This is why we need to know our target audience. This is where you can learn more about it. This is why we want to do these things, these overarching recommendations. And why. These are the recommendations. Why? Here are some examples of how other people have solved this problem and why it works. This is why it's important to think about head comfort zones. Because of these physical effects on your body, head comfort zones are a very important thing to think about in XR. Physical fatigue, also something to think about in XR. This is why this is important. This is why we want to do this. Here are examples of how people have done this well. And just educating. So this is just a lot of education on this is why we want to do this. This is how we would do it and why. And here's an example of how someone else did it. And speaking through point by point, and that's where you can see these lines drawn. Point by point, each of these thorns has a bud tied to it. And I need to double check why these don't have one drawn to it. I'll have to check that on the training one. But ideally, each of these thorns has a bud tied to it because you want to address each of these things. So I just need to double check and see why I didn't draw a line to those. But then we're educating. This is why. This is why. This is why. This is the long report again. And then if it were a real project, my next steps would have been to start body storming and storyboarding designs. And then I'd create a prototype of like an improved experience in Shapes XR. If you haven't heard of Shapes XR, they are free on the Quest. And it is a storyboarding in VR. And you can also actually storyboard for mixed reality and augmented reality as well in there because they use Quest Pass-Through to do it. So this is what I would do if this were a real project. So if this were an actual project, I would be saying my next steps for the project, which would depend on the project, of course. So if I were doing a research report with like something that we've already made, and we were analyzing whether or not it was the solution that we created is going to be useful to the target audience, my next steps would be to start storyboarding out changes to that solution based on the research that we did, like usability testing or something. My next steps would be, okay, now I'm going to start storyboarding out since I've done this competitive landscape, I'm going to start storyboarding out how we're going to improve our product. And then if it were just me doing initial competitive landscape on a new product, then again, at this point, I should have already done my research on the target audience at this point, which would have been go watch them do this in their environment. It's not a survey. It is you observing them playing the games and talking out loud, like I do on Thursdays when I talk out loud about what issues I'm having and so forth. It's observing them in their environment, seeing the issues that they're having, and addressing those issues, and to help inform your direction of your solution. So ideally, we've already done that, and we've already done this competitive landscaping. So if it's a new project, we would then take that knowledge that we have from that initial research of the target audience and our knowledge of what the stakeholders want out of this project and our knowledge based on this competitive landscape that we've done. And then we would start storyboarding, body storming out potential solutions for our new product. And storyboarding and body storming for XR is going to be very similar to how you do it for gaming. If you don't know what body storming is where you take actual physical props, like 3D crafting supplies in real life. It's a trick from industrial design. So you build a physical prototype of a thing with crafting supplies. So body storming for XR would be where you're not going to be brainstorming for a 3D experience on a 2D screen. It doesn't work as effectively. You want to get off of your 2D screen and get into physical space, because XR is all physical. It's all digitally spatial. So you got to think spatially again. That's where body storming comes in. It gets you out of that 2D mindset and back into the physical world so that you can think about your experience in 360 space, because that is how you effectively design for XR, is getting out of that 2D mindset. So then body storming and storyboarding would be that next step after that. So that is how I would write a report for training. So the trends here are that overarching things that are working for training. Let's see. Here. I had that open somewhere. Did I close it? Right. The overarching things that are working for training are that they allow you to adjust the audio control settings, like the sound mix, except for first steps and first contact. Those didn't allow you to do that. So I would have to mention that overall, they allowed you to adjust the settings, which is important for accessibility. And for example, I have sensitive hearing, so even the music that I'm listening to right now on Lo-Fi Girl is very loud to me. It may not be loud to you, I'm not sure, but it's very loud to me. So being able to adjust that sound mix, because it's not just about people that can't hear, it's also about people that have too sensitive of hearing. They need to be able to hear what is being said. So being able to adjust the sound mix is going to be helpful to that. Hey, Flamoto Design, how are you doing? You gotta run. Thanks for all the help. Look, you took it? Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah, I saw somebody had finished it. Was that you? Okay. I need to get you your certificate of completion. I saw that you had finished it. Thanks for taking it. I'm glad it was helpful. Yeah. Have a good day. Okay, thanks. Have a good day. So it's important to allow them to be able to adjust the audio settings. And then another thing that they were all doing well was that the assembly and disassembly of like fine parts and things were not cumbersome. They had automated that animation so that you don't have to sit there in VR and do this or the wrench or whatever. It was not cumbersome, so they just automated that for you, which is nice in VR. It's not on how to screw in a screw, it's on how to assemble something, but hopefully you already know how to screw a screw. But that does bring up the point. I need coffee. That does bring up the point that you can't assume that people already know that. If you're training, if it's actual training, can't necessarily assume people already know how to screw in a screw, because maybe they don't. Especially when it comes to certain types of electronics or certain types of equipment, because there's like reverse thread on pivoting parts, and so you would need to know about reverse threading depending on the part that you're assembling, especially in like cars and moving things. So if that is something that needs to be covered, then that needs to be covered. Like in car, like I have seen and experienced this more than once, where when you're changing a tire on a car, for example, if they use a hydraulic wrench, that's that what it's called? Pneumatic wrench, hydraulic wrench. I don't remember. They'll overstrip the nut, and then so if you're stuck on the side of the road and you're trying to change your tire, and they've overstripped it, it's really hard to change your tire. So teaching them how to properly use that wrench so that they're not overstripping the screws and the bolts and things is really important. So maybe that is something that you need to teach. It depends on the goal of your training. What is the goal of your training? Who is your target audience? But for the most part, it doesn't have to be, you still don't have to sit there and like screw in the screw. It can still be automated, and you can still cover that without it being overly cumbersome. And then it's important to let them have that list of objectives easily accessible, so that they can refer to, what is it that I'm supposed to be working on right now? What is it that I've already done? What have I completed? What have I not completed? What's my next step? So when you're training, that's really important to know what are the steps in this. If there are steps, what is the thing that I'm supposed to be working on now? Because they could get distracted or they could lose track, and this checklist or objective list helps them to know clearly what is it they're supposed to be working on, because they could be getting overwhelmed by something. So having that list is important. Wayfinding is provided overarching. Most of them did a good job of providing wayfinding. That is important, especially in training. If you have multiple areas that you're going to, it's important to have wayfinding to show them where they need to go next. I've watched multiple, I've done usability testing, and people will get lost and get frustrated because they don't know where they're supposed to go next. That's happened to me because I was trying the lab training VR. After I'd done all this synthesis, I tried lab training VR. That was one that Phantom provided. This will be nice with some of the new AR glasses. We'll soon be able to have checklists during actual work and wayfinding. Yeah, that's something to look forward to for that, for sure. Yeah, even in just normal work. Yeah. But for training, it'll be really cool for training in AR, because you can learn on the job, and it'll give you, especially if it's like a smarter AR, that it'll know, okay, yeah, you've completed this. What's your next step? Here, you need to do this next. Here's where you go next. It'll be pretty cool. But that lab training PPE edition, that's one of the CDC ones that you had recommended to me, Phantom, to try. And I think you were or I was talking about it at some point with it. I kept having technical issues. Every time I tried to open it, my CPU would start freaking out, like going to 100% processing. And I don't know if it was because of a graphics card issue on my side or because of the actual sim, but I rage uninstalled it. But I did get to this point, but it did break my stream, so I wasn't able to stream it. The recording didn't come out, so I don't have it recorded, which is annoying because something broke. So I didn't get that footage, but I was able to do the Rose Thorn bed on what I was able to get through. And so I do have that. It's just not in my synthesis yet, but I probably will add it to the synthesis. What I did learn. And one of those things is if it's not performant, then you need to pay attention to your performance, because they give advice on what's your minimum requirements. I think it's on their actual website. Oh yeah, they do talk about it here too. That ain't gonna cut it. GTX 1060, I don't think that's gonna cut it. 1080's recommended. I don't think that's gonna cut it. So yeah. And it was originally built only for the Vive, and they did later add support for the Quest because people were complaining about it. But so I was trying it on the Quest and was not having a good time of it. So yeah, I had a lot of issues. But I did do a Rose Thorn bud on it, and I just have to add it to the overall synthesis of this because I did learn something from it. Because we learned from that, they do let you initiate the start, which was good, and they provided captions. There were some things that I liked about it, that I appreciated about it. It showed you a map and told you this is your environment, but you don't have any access to that map after the fact. They just show it to you in a video. It's all plopped into a video at the intro, and everything that you're learning is in a video that they've just placed in the environment. It's like, this VR, come on. But of course, I was just at the very beginning. I had to stop it when I got to this part where you're trying to put on the PPE equipment, because the mirror wasn't working. I would stand in front of the mirror and I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see myself or anything. And that's when the CPU started freaking out. So I was like, I don't want to fry my computer, so I'm going to stop this now. And there wasn't any wayfinding telling me where to go. So I was completely lost. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing next. It's like, because I'm completely new to this whole PPE CDC thing. So give me a guided path to follow. What do I need to learn first? Send me there with wayfinding. It didn't do that. I just had to guess, where do I go next? And walk around this environment here, and it's just rooms, and it doesn't say which one do you go to first, which one do you go to next. They're just rooms, and you just have to figure out, okay, where do I go? And so that was I didn't get very far at all, because I didn't even get to the point where I was able to put on the actual equipment to do anything with it. But that's telling in and of itself. They didn't have any kind of tooltips on the controllers. They didn't have wayfinding telling me where to go. They didn't have like an objective list. I don't remember seeing an objective list saying go here next, learn this next. The intro information, I couldn't manually progress it. It was just all thrown in a video. But I did like that they tell you what to expect, what you'll be learning. And I liked that they shared grading requirements for it, because this is CDC, so they're going to have some certification grading requirements for it. And you can learn more about that on their website, the CDC website. And then it shows you a map of the environment. And when you leave and re-enter, it gives you the option of picking up where you left off. So if you had to leave for something, which is normal in training or in life in general, you're going to have to leave at some point and come back. They give you the option to pick up where you left off, which is awesome. You don't have to restart the whole thing over, which is great. And that was a great feature that I hadn't seen on anything else. So that I would call a standout feature. And then, yeah, you have the different stations, but there's no wayfinding to them. And they actually did support the Cosmos controller. And I talked about that. No, I think I've already closed it. Didn't I already close it? I already closed it. I talked about that in that report on the other one, on the RPG, tabletop RPGs, that it's a common problem for people with the Vive Cosmos. To the games will assume that it's a original Vive with the wand, and so the Cosmos controllers won't be supported. But they actually support the Cosmos controllers, which is nice. So I learned a lot from it, even though I wasn't in there very long. So that's great. So performance is very top priority. It was very laggy, and this is one of the other reasons why I stopped playing, was because it was lagging so badly that it was flashing, and yeah, it was flashing, and I was concerned about, even I'm getting uncomfortable with this thing. If I had epilepsy, I'd be having a seizure right now. That's how bad it was on the lag. But again, I don't know if it was a problem on my side that I needed to update a graphics card, or if it was just the performance of their system. It may have been a combination, because I think I ended up having to upgrade a graphics card after that. So I may reinstall it and try it again, but I'm not so inclined to break my computer right now. Captions are defaulted to off. They do provide captions, which is awesome, but they're defaulted to off instead of on. So I did learn a lot, and this is important information that can be included in the course. So it's useful. It's good, even though I didn't spend a lot of time in there. And I do appreciate you finding that and sharing it with me. Yeah, it is almost time for that other meeting that I want to make. I don't know if you'll be there, Phantom. But yeah, I want to make that one because I made a mural board for it, and I need to drive mirror board. It might be confusing. So I will, if you're there, I'll see you there. And thanks again to everyone for watching, and I'll be back hopefully Tuesday to work more on the patterns that I'm gathering for this thing. So thanks again, and I'll see y'all later. Have a good rest of your day.